Buongiorno. Beh, è bello vedere di nuovo questa sala piena e vedo che insomma, quando si parla di Siria insomma, l'argomento, chissà come mai, insomma, attira. Buongiorno a tutti, grazie per essere arrivati qui stamattina così in tanti e vedrete e ascolterete, ne vale veramente la pena perché l'ospite che abbiamo qui è veramente un ospite eccezionale per tutto quello che sta facendo, che ha fatto in questi anni e continuerà certamente a fare. E quindi buongiorno a Zaina e Rahim, grazie per essere venuta qui al Festival Internazionale di Giornalismo, perché la testimonianza di Zaina riesce a raccontarci molto di una crisi, chiamiamola semplicemente crisi, proviamo a non parlare del conflitto, parliamo della crisi siriana, perché non è semplicemente il conflitto quello che sta accadendo in Siria, purtroppo, e Zaina lo sta raccontando da più di 5 anni in maniera molto particolare, con un coinvolgimento personale, del resto è inevitabile sia così. Tra l'altro Zaina è originaria di Idlib, una città che in questi giorni magari molti di noi che non la conoscevano, molti di voi che non la conoscevano hanno imparato a conoscere per un episodio molto grave, probabilmente ecco un nome di una città che a tantissimi non diceva nulla e che improvvisamente invece a causa di quello che è accaduto è diventato purtroppo un nome quasi familiare. Allora io credo che sia importante ascoltare adesso la presentazione di Zaina, perché dalla sua presentazione noi poi alimenteremo e animeremo il dibattito questa mattina. E allora voglio dare la parola a Zaina, prego.
Thank you. Okay, so good morning, everyone. What I'm going to be doing in the next 10 minutes is that I'm going to try to put you in my place. I'm going to lend you my shoes. And you're going to be Zaina, the Syrian journalist who is trying to work inside Syria and in neighboring countries. And I hope you will be able to see what I've seen, to live what I'm living, and to be able to imagine what does really mean to be a Syrian journalist working in Syria. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to try to make you a Syrian journalist. That's mainly work from 2011, when the uprising started in Syria, until 2017. Before that, it's really a long story. We were very much censored. I'm just going to brief about the situation before the uprising when we were working under the Assad regime. I was living in Damascus then and trying to work for a local website. Everything that you write, everything that you do, whenever you're going, you're pretty much monitored. I remember I published an opinion piece once. It speaks about fear, just the general term fear. But I mentioned in it when you are afraid of everyone that puts the black glasses. It was a term to describe the security forces. For us, security doesn't really mean security, it means scare. And that article led me to being questioned in the military security forces because I wrote about fear. So you can imagine how difficult was it before the uprising to write about anything that's related to human rights, to politics, even focusing on NGOs will lead you somewhere to the state, and that will put you in trouble. So what we're going to be speaking about now is mainly the area from the uprising from 2011 until 2017. Well, that's in the picture is me. This is how I look like when I was working in the rebel-held side of Aleppo. And the person who's in my back is my husband. I wasn't able to take picture, to film, to report anything without having a male guardian on my side. He is the one who will take the questions, the curious ones of the fighters who are approaching and asking whom you're working for, why you're doing this. I wouldn't answer that. And I wouldn't really been able to work without having a male guardian on my side. So my husband is a full-time, free of charge fixer. He always takes photographs for me, and sometimes he has to take some videos because some areas I can't really film. So I had to train him how to film and how to be a media activist in a way to be able to help me with my work. So, what do you mean to be a Syrian journalist who's working inside Syria? It means being targeted by all the parties. And by all the parties, I mean the regime, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, related groups or the extremists, and then the warlords. All these parties, they do want you to be either their propagandist or you're going to be a target. You either be a propagandist for al-Assad or you're going to be put in prison, torture until death. And this is not like a predicted thing. I have many friends who have been killed under torture in Assad prisons. And many of I know, they would rather kill themselves than handing themselves over to the regime security forces. The concept, it's hilarious, but the concept is being killed quickly, it's much more easier than being killed very much slowly under torture. I remember once, I'm going to tell you this very quickly, when the army advanced in our neighborhood, and we had a discussion, me and my husband, what would you do if the army actually reached our house? And we were living very close to the front line. And he said, I will kill myself and you, because I can't bear the idea of us being tortured and being helpless. And I was like, I don't want to die. I want to give it a chance, although I'm going to be tortured, but maybe I will get out someday. And he said, no, I can't really bear the idea of you being tortured, so I'm going to kill you. And I was like, I'm going to run and say, that terrorist is trying to kill me to prevent you from doing so. But this is something that we Syrians are actually discuss. Would you rather be killed by ISIS and your head being chopped off, or you prefer to kill with the regime in torture in prison? And some new techniques that is being used by Al-Qaeda-related groups and the Islamists is that they actually put these explosive materials under your car. So it's a clean assassination. And they're very much available in all Syria in general. So each part wants you to be something, and if you refuse to be that propagandist, you will face the threat of being killed in two different ways. Not to mention the bombing that's happening not only to you as a journalist or as a Syrian, but this is happening to everyone else. So I'm here speaking specifically about the targets that targets you as a Syrian journalist. So these are the ones that, the threats and the results that I spoke about. That wall was in Aleppo city. Some activists on the anniversary of the revolution, they wrote freedom in all the languages that they could find on Google Translate. And that was in one of the demonstrations that we did. The wall is not there, my home is not there, nothing is left. Anyway, so I just made a very short comparison between being an international journalist who's trying to cover Syria and being a Syrian who is covering Syria. I think mainly for an international journalist, they do have more freedom to report Syria. Even if I'm living, whether I'm living in the Kurdish areas, in ISIS areas, regime areas, rebelhood areas, and sadly we do have 5 Syrias now. Whether I'm living in either of these parts, I will be monitored, and I do have to do a self-monitoring, otherwise I will face the results that I just spoke about. So for a foreign journalist, it's much more easier to cover it. He doesn't eventually have to go back to this area and live in it. It's not his home. He doesn't have a family members or relatives who are living in that area. So for example, if I want to do a piece about planting drugs in some of the Islamist area, where they're actually planting drugs to get money out of it, they will definitely reach. If they couldn't reach me, they have my family, whom most of them are still inside Syria. If they don't have my families, that means I wouldn't be able to go back. So as long as I want to live inside Syria, I do have to apply a very harsh self-censorship on what I do, what I write, even my post on Facebook. I remember when I was in Aleppo, I was asking my husband and my mom to double-check every single post I put, because it might get me killed, or get my husband into jail, because he's my guardian and he's going to be taken to the Sharia courts because his wife wrote something against the will of one of the warlords or the extremists. So the freedom, the support. it is really funny for me to know that if you get harassed or if you have an issue in another country, you go to your embassy and they try to help you in all the ways for you to be safe. Actually, my embassy is my enemy. The regime wants me killed, so they would definitely not help me. When I once went with the BBC to a Shia town in Idlib, and we got kidnapped. I was kidnapped with my manager, and he's British. And he was telling me, like, Zaina, you go away, you run away, and we can go to Damascus. We are British, we can go out. You will be killed. So the idea of not having any kind of support, not from your government, but actually getting threats and being scared of your own government, it's really shocking. And I think this is the main difference between being a foreign journalist and a Syrian journalist who is trying to work in or about Syria. The foreign journalists also have a home to go back to. This is just a mission. They go, they report, and they go back. For me, where to go back to? The credibility. Sadly, most of the international media is still treating Syrian journalists and Syrian citizen journalists as less credible sources. Some of them, they do not have a journalism degree, but others do. But still, I do feel like I'm being looked down by the fellow international journalists just because I'm local. So I'm supposed to be less educated, less credible, and less trusted. Impartiality. I think this is something understood. For them, they're reporting a news. They might have compassion, they might have sympathy for the sources or for the stories that they're covering. But for me, the story is my school, my classmates, my family, my old boyfriend. The story is so close to me that sometimes, most of the times, I can't be impartial about it. Superiority, I just spoke about it earlier, and the sources. And here I'm going to be speaking more afterward. The Syria exclusive challenges in neighboring country and abroad. So in the previous 5 minutes, I spoke mainly about the challenges while working inside Syria. And sadly, the main challenges I faced are only in the rebel-held areas. I was in ISIS areas, but at that time, they were not the only ones who are controlling the areas, so it was not that difficult for me. I just worked as I was working. But I couldn't work in the regime areas. I preferred to work under bombing, sniping, mortars, name it, but I couldn't bear the idea of being arrested. I just couldn't bear it. So I didn't go to any of the regime areas since 2012. So speaking about the challenges for Syrian journalists in neighboring countries and abroad. In neighboring countries, the legal status is mission impossible. In Lebanon, Jordan, and Turkey, we can't get any papers. We can't get any status. I am very lucky one, and I have a tourist visa in Turkey. Others, like my mom, they have a refugee card that if you're traveling from a town to another town that's 60 kilometers away, you need to take a permission from the authorities. That's the best that you can get in the neighboring countries. Syrian documents are tools for blackmailing. To be able to get a new passport, to be able to register your child, your marriage, you do need not only to pay the regime or the consulate of the regime, but they actually make it very, very much harder on the opposition or the opposing figures. They do know that person, he is speaking against the regime, why to give him a paper? And that's easy. No one can question them. No one can force them to give those papers, basic ID papers, to the people in the refugee, in the neighboring countries. Sadly, I think the latest report showed that 500,000 kids in their neighboring countries are not registered. They don't have any kind of IDs or identification cards because the regime would easily not issue ones, and no one is pressuring the regime to do so. No documentation, high security risk. I'm sure you've heard about the 3 assassinations that ISIS did in southern Turkey, targeting 3 activists who were opposing it and publishing stories about their violations. So even in neighboring countries where you think you're a bit safer, it's not. And also in Lebanon, I know many cases where Hezbollah, who is a main part helping the regime, also arrested a journalist, beaten them, and kicked him out of the country. He's a filmmaker. They just kidnapped him from the streets. They beat him really harshly, and then they asked him to leave. And he is lucky to escape. For others, they were delivered back to Damascus, and we don't know what happened to them later. No stability nor future. I was just being asked, so what's next? Are you going to be staying in neighboring countries? I don't know. Maybe the next day they would ask us to leave. We don't have a legal status. We're no ones. They can't do so, and I can't defend myself. So we are really floating in the neighboring countries, and we're not sure what's going to happen. I think that will give you an insight. Why do you have refugees leaving the neighboring countries, which are safe? No war is there. But they're seeking your countries to seek asylum in. Speaking about your countries, no visas. Visas hate us Syrian the most. It's pretty difficult. I was just speaking with Christopher, and he reminded me that the last year I couldn't join because my husband couldn't get a visa, and I had a newborn, then I couldn't make it on my own. We are being treated as a potential terrorists. Wherever I travel, I have a press card, I work for an international organization, I speak English, so I am one of the luckiest again. And despite that, I'm always being stopped, I'm always being randomly checked, because I carry this damn passport, because I am supposed to be a terrorist, because I am being terrorized by ISIS and the extremists who are invading my country, and many of them are coming from yours. And they're not being prevented from the European countries to coming to mine. Being a journalist doesn't protect me from that at all. So not speaking about the others who are not. Syrians are being used as the scary monster. I'm sure in all the discussions, I can't understand Italian, but I can speak about the British and the US. Syrians are mentioned in all the parliamentary sessions, in all the campaigns, in all the elections, from two parties. The left are using them to scare, to frighten the right, and opposite, the vice versa. So all parties are trying to use us as an excuse to prove their point, which is it's really sad. We are also being discriminated against based on our religion. In the previous US ban, the Trump executive order said it's okay to have Syrian Christians, it's okay to have Syrian Druzzis, whatever, but the Muslims, no, we can't have them here. And the idea of just punishing someone because he was accidentally born in that community, in that land, it's really so much fueling extremism, and it's fueling anger and hatred toward this nation. And I think they're supposed to be fighting terrorism, but they're just really fueling it. This picture is in Raqqa. I'm sure you all know that Raqqa is the capital of the caliphate. But that was in 2013, and the blondie one used to be me. I was walking like that in Raqqa, and most of the local women were walking around like this. It wasn't an issue, although there were fighters, there were armed groups there, but they're Syrians. They were not extremists by then. That's just a couple of months before ISIS took over. And then when they started, they were there, but they were not the only group controlling Raqqa. And one of our friends was kidnapped, so we decided to write this panel, and we raised it. This is the Ifrat, and that bridge is recently destroyed by the coalition strikes. And Osama, the guy on the right, he has been kidnapped for the last 3 years. We don't know whether he's still alive or dead. But if he is still alive and he's going to apply for a Schengen visa, he's going to be considered as terrorist because he used to live in an area that ISIS is controlling now. So what is a newsy and the distance between you as a Syrian journalist and the sources? That person in the picture is my husband with the red t-shirt. This is in a school massacre that happened in our neighborhood in Saif al-Dole before I left Aleppo. As far as I remember, 10 children who were doing their exams were killed in that barrel bomb attack. And it was so close. It was in the next building of mine. That's why I could actually go at the first instance, and I was there. My husband has an experience, sadly now, in rescuing and in first aid. He didn't have any of that before the revolution. But now he's a great rescuer, and he's always come back to the home with the bloody T-shirts, and he tried to hide them. Because rescuing is very dangerous in Syria because there is always another target for those. So the first barrel bomb is for the target, which is mainly a civilian market or area. And then the second barrel bomb targets those who are trying to help the injuries of the first target. So I was really scared for him because he does this rescuing work, and it's pretty dangerous for that. So, what is Newsy? A whole family you lived with for a month, killed in a one barrel bomb. Not Newsy, you wouldn't hear that story. But for you, this is a whole family. The father, mother, 18 years old girl, and 10 years old Aboudi, a boy. They were all killed in a car bomb. No one knows who planted that car bomb. No one knows why. And it was simply passed as 5 people killed on the Syrian border, and that's it. For you, this is not just breaking news. Your home is set on fire. This is not even going to make it to your local Facebook Newsy page, because many houses are set on fire. But this is your home, and it has all your memories. You've lived in it for the last 18 years, and the security forces are setting it on fire to get revenge of you. This is not news again. Your friend is being killed under torture. 11,000 pictures have been leaked by Caesar into the media about people who get under torture. It mainly made it the news for a week, 2, and then it's forgotten. So a friend killed under torture, this is not newsy. You and most of those you lived with are forced to leave the only home you have. When my mom left to Turkey 3 years ago, I was paying for her rent, and the landlord asked for 6 months in advance. And she was like, "You want me to pay 6 months in advance? I'm going back next month." Now, I paid for 2 years, and she was not complaining. The idea that the refugees are really willing to go, or they're actually looking for a better life, is really, for us at least, it's very misleading. We want nothing but to go back. Despite the ability to travel, despite the ability to stay, we're still fighting even to hold on to the areas closest to our home, so we can finally be able to go back somewhere, someday. Refugees, displaced, unknown bodies, chemical attack, caliphate capital, all are not abstract news for us. The 5 W's, they are our life. Where is a place that I was raised at, a place that I studied at, a place that I had the first date at. And when, this is also related to my life. So the ability to put yourself aside from your sources and to just report impartially, it's pretty difficult for a Syrian journalist, and especially for someone who really doesn't want to leave Syria. When I went to do my master's degree in London, I was leaving Damascus airport crying, and I said, I will go back immediately after my master's degree finished. And I did. But then the revolution was on, and my friend, Amer Matar, he's a well-known journalist, was arrested on the same day that I was meeting him. So he sent me a message through another friend, and he said, leave. And that was the last time I went to the regime-held part of Syria. 107 killed, challenges, why to go on? Syria is considered to be the world's deadliest country for journalists, and despite that, many journalists who are capable of leaving it or capable of leaving the neighboring countries are still trying to survive in it and in them and to still work. Why? Well, first, because for us as Syrians and journalists, quitting is not a choice. Who's going to report what's going on? Who's going to keep this information alive? Who's going to keep nagging on the international community to do something about it? There is an obligation for the friends and colleagues who fell on the road, and someone like Osama, someone like Ubaida, who also has been kidnapped by ISIS, someone like Zahir, who was killed under torture in Assad prisons. I have a very long list that I can't even remember all of them, sadly. What to do. If I quit, what do they feel if they were alive? There is also a part that keeps me personally going, active role in writing the Syrian history. The Syrian history that I studied was very much written by the Ba'ath Party. It was very much North Korean style. We were nothing without al-Assad. We were nothing without the Ba'ath Party. Our lives were in vain. They came, they brought us to life. What I'm trying to do now, like my personal project, is trying to document the Syrian history through the women's eyes, through the activist life, providing not only journalism pieces, but also blogs. So when the military winners, who are mainly going to be men, and mainly are going to be military personals, are going to sit and write the history, someone can challenge them and say, no, this event didn't happen that way. This is a piece by a credible media activist who wrote it in that area at that time, and this is not right. So that's one of the main reasons that keep me going. As long as people are being suppressed and has no freedom of expression, I and many of those who I know feel obliged to go on. I can't claim I am being their voices, but many of those who are still living in Syria, they have more limits than I do now, because I can meet you, I can travel. So I'm just trying to say what they can't say publicly. Preventing the kingdom of silence, of returning. Even though the price that we've paid to be able to say what we want to say, it's really quite high. But despite that, being able to write what you want, to report what you want, and not to be treated as a criminal because you're a journalist or you attended a training in human rights, it deserves that price. Or at least we should be keeping this ability to speak freely alive and the freedom of expression alive, because we have paid a lot for it. Me and others are still working not to go back to this silence area where no one is allowed to say anything unless a propaganda and cheering for the regime. And if I quit journalism, what else would I do? I can't even cook. And that's it for me.
Thank you.
You're going to speak in Italian?
Yes, I will speak in Italian so you can have the translation. Okay,
That's
great.
difficult.
Grazie mille Zaina. Io, siccome i tempi qui, come sapete, a Perugia sono sempre molto stretti, allora vorrei dare l'opportunità, perché immagino alle persone che sono arrivate qui, a fare delle domande a Zaina. Scusate la mia voce, ma la voce io di solito ce l'ho, però vedere tutta questa gente mi emoziona, e allora questa è la mia reazione. Scusatemi, non tremo, ma mi va via la voce, mi capita questo, scusatemi tanto. Però volevo fare una domanda a Zaina prima di dare la possibilità a voi di fare le vostre domande. Tutti sappiamo quello che è successo ieri e tutti abbiamo ascoltato le parole di Trump. Trump ha motivato l'attacco di ieri dicendo: non voglio più vedere delle vittime innocenti essere uccise così da Bashar al-Assad. E allora ci sono state molte organizzazioni internazionali per i diritti umani che hanno risposto: beh, intanto puoi fare una cosa, togliere il travel ban. Credo che sia questo, per esempio, uno degli appelli che anche voi chiedete come attivisti, giornalisti. Aiutate i siriani, proprio per quello che stavi descrivendo prima.
The ban is just one element, I think. The ban bothers me a lot because of the discrimination side of it, because you're just being treated without the education that you've done, without the work that you're trying to do, you're just being treated on the basis of where you were born. But I think there is an element that if you stopped the regime, if you stopped the war, then no one is going to be having to flee, no one is going to be having to come. But now, as you're not doing this, opening the door is the least. Many other children are being killed while trying to hit the sea and arrive to Europe. So people are being killed in different ways, and I think opening the door is an issue, and stop treating Syrians as they are the cause of the problem, despite the fact that the main thing, or the only thing that they've done is that they dared 6 years ago to raise against the regime, to demand their freedom, and the basic rights that you all have and you claim that your country represents.
Zaina, tu ti sei concentrata molto sul racconto del conflitto attraverso proprio le donne attiviste, hai anche formato dei citizen journalist, quelli che ci hanno permesso di vedere, di ascoltare quello che accadeva in aree della Siria che per la stampa internazionale erano irraggiungibili. Ecco, com'è cambiata anche la donna siriana? Ci facevi vedere proprio all'inizio come tu potevi operare soltanto con tuo marito alle spalle, perché delle persone non ti avrebbero neanche risposto in quanto donne. Ecco, com'è cambiato proprio anche l'attitudine della giovane siriana, delle donne siriane, proprio a causa di questo conflitto e di questa crisi?
It's difficult to generalize, but I believe in the cases that I know. When I started training inside Syria in 2013, there were only one woman citizen journalist, only one. And then I started working with those who have some experience in journalism, and then I discovered that I'm only doing male trainings. And then I invited women who are interested in becoming journalists to attend the training. Most of them were actually housewives. Some of them didn't even have their 12th baccalaureate degree, but they were very interested. They do want to voice. They do want to be heard. I remember the first story, because in the training I asked them to do the first story, and I work with them on it until the end. I remember the first story, a person called Hadia, she did it behind her husband. She didn't tell him what she was doing. And she was bringing her 5 kids to the training, so you can imagine how much I was enjoying it. After the first story was published in Syria Stories website that we fund, and I paid for her on that stories, and the payment compared to the Syrian pound, I paid her in dollar, and the Syrian pound is really low. So her husband saw that she actually gained 5 times what he gained a month, which is just $100, but this is 5 times what he gained. And he was like, "How did you do that?" She said, "I wrote an article." And I was, what does that take? How can I help? And because in her conservative society, she can't really mix with men. It's forbidden for their tradition and religion to mix up with men. He started actually going and doing the male interviews on her behalf. She was writing the questions on a piece of paper, and he was going to the male's interviewee and get her the answers, because she became the breadwinner of the house. So this is one example, but I can't really say that women journalists can work freely now. And they do still need someone to travel with them. They do need someone to be a male, to be on their side. When I wrote something against the Sharia law, and al-Nusra were so angry of me, they took my husband to the jail. They didn't even question me, because they're not allowed to hear my voice. So he was the one who took the burden of what I wrote. So there are pros and cons, I believe.
Quali sono a tuo avviso ancora gli stereotipi utilizzati invece dalla stampa internazionale, ecco, dai giornalisti internazionali, quando si cerca di raccontare proprio la vita dei siriani, degli stereotipi che voi invece siriani, voi giornalisti siriani, non amate, non volete che invece vengano riportati?
In general, Syrians and specifically women are only treated as victims. You're all victims, sad, they will bit on your shoulder and that's it. No, they're not. Some of them are rebellious, and this is why I did the rebellious series, and this is why I'm still doing the blogs. Some of them are still trying to help their society, and they're still trying to be active and to report what's going on. In most cases, they would also think that you're refugees, you're poor, you don't have anyone, you're not educated. No, we're refugees because we are forced to. I might have a PhD, I might have a work, but I just don't have a land. Refugees just mean I don't have a land. It doesn't mean I have a specific status of being poor or, let's say, a harasser or whatever. I think these stereotypes are very much applied from the international media that I read, at least.
Io voglio lasciare veramente lo spazio a voi, perché è una tale opportunità avere qui Zaina che credo che, visto che abbiamo una giornalista veramente di terreno, infatti vedo già delle mani alzate, questo è il festival soprattutto dei giovani giornalisti, quindi magari ecco un microfono qui in prima fila così possiamo cominciare a raccogliere le domande, ne raccoglierei intanto un paio, grazie.
Hello. I was wondering...
Puoi parlare in italiano perché tanto lei ha la traduzione così ti capiscono. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. That's my fault.
Okay.
Ascoltate la traduzione che non capisce.
I was wondering how was the process from being a Syrian local journalist to become a war reporter in your own country. How did you experience that?
Raccoglierei un'altra domanda dietro di te. Okay.
You want me to ask a question now? No. I suppose you would want to answer the first one.
No, I just was thinking about collecting at least two questions. And
okay,
so
wonderful.
that you can, okay.
First of all, Zana, thank you so much for being honest, being here, and being that sincere in what you're saying. And I can only, so my name is Andrei Soslank, I'm a journalist from Ukraine. I have more of a personal question. How do you find support and how do you find strength to go on further? You mentioned, if I quit, what they're going to feel. So I have this question for you. So how do you find support? Who supports you? Where do you get the power from? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Please.
First, to be frank, 10 years ago, when I was doing my journalism BA, I was wondering why would anyone go to war to report? I didn't really understand why war reporters are doing so. Why not the local reporters are reporting? What would drag you to put not only your life, but the family, the sanity of your mind? Why would you go to do that? And I didn't find an answer. I've never imagined that I would be a war correspondent. Sadly, I was forced to, and I don't like this. I don't like to know what the face of a killed child looks like. I don't like to know whether this blood is fresh or it's an old one. I don't like to find a body in the garbage bag. I don't like to see these things. I'm forced to because this is my home, and I can't really run away from it. And about Alexander's question, you can't really go without the support. When I was inside Syria, the main support was friends and family. They were the great support. And I think what's been missed from the media is that those who are living inside Syria, they do have lives. I had the first surprise party in my life in Aleppo in a basement because the bombing was so extensive. So my friends organized for a surprise birthday party in that basement. Such a thing that would tell you that you matter if you're killed tomorrow, and this was something that we expect all the time. You know that you're not going to be forgotten. If you're kidnapped, you know that some people are going to request you're released, although they're putting their lives in danger. I think having an international organization that supports you is really important as well, especially on the international and travel. I wouldn't have been able to come to here or to anywhere without the Institute for War and Peace Reporting that I'm working at. Sadly, not all other international organizations are that supporters because they also have this superior look to the Syrian locals. So having that support is important. Also, the insurance is a really big issue. I know some, like the RSF, Reporters Without Borders, offer freelance some insurance. It's really important to know that your family that you support are going to be safe if you got killed. You can have this peace of mind. such a things, and you're going to be insane anyway. You will be insane. So having someone who can help you on the mental level, I didn't find the right person yet, but I'm planning for that. So this is something you also should consider, because you will be affected and you won't be yourself anymore.
Altre domande? Vedo una mano alzata lì, 2 mani qui. Ecco, prego.
Good morning. I can't help but notice that while news reports refer to what's happening in Syria as a civil war, you repeatedly refer to it as a revolution. Can you enlighten us on the difference? And relatedly, should news organizations adopt your usage?
Well, until now, I do not consider it as a civil war. A civil war is where different sects fight each other. It's not when the state that has the army and all the power and the air force is hitting civilian areas. It was a revolution. I was there in the siege, in what's now Siege Duma in 2011. I participated. My first demonstration was there. And I was among those amazing women who were just turning lights, and I was among a Christian group that joined from a different neighbor. And no one chanted anything, but all Syrians are one. The revolution is not sectarian. We want our freedom, and we want to topple the regime. I just lightened in a very quick question what we were living before the regime, but if I want to speak in detail, I was raised to be a military person. I did have a military service, in a way, until my baccalaureate. I was wearing the military uniform in my school. And that's really awful to show the only innocent memories of you with a military uniform, because this is how we were raised. So it was a revolution. And sadly, when dragged into war, it became this chaotic thing. But how to blame the people to hold arms if you're seeing your army that you paid for is sending tanks and air force to hit civilian areas? The attack that happened in my province 2 days ago at the chemical weapon killed 30 children. They're definitely not working in a military base. They're definitely not armed. Many of them are toddlers. They can't even hold their weapon. So it's definitely not a civil war. And the term being used in media, it really hurts me. And I think this is one of the general terms that are just taken for granted without even thinking about it. And very few Syrians would use that term.
C'era un'altra mano alzata qui davanti, il microfono, ecco qui.
Posso rivolgerla in italiano, vero?
Prego.
Okay. Sì, sappiamo che parallelamente in Siria si svolge anche una guerra informatica, ovvero il regime utilizza le armi degli attacchi hacker e dei virus per reprimere il dissenso e ostacolare il lavoro, insomma, anche dei giornalisti. Hai mai subito attacchi di questo tipo e com'è svolgere la professione giornalistica rischiando di subire questi attacchi e di vedersi rubare informazioni anche importanti, sia per il mestiere ma anche per la propria vita?
Well, in the first 2 years of the revolution, the regime even created a form of the Facebook that's completely the same, but it was stealing all the information because Facebook was mainly used to organize the demonstrations through the closed blogs. So at that time, the attacks were even more extensive than what it is now. In the last 3 years, we recognized as an organization the importance of the digital security training. So we started not only doing the basic security trainings for the activists that we work with or who are writing for us, but we also started doing TOTs, training of trainers. And we then signed contracts with them to pass these trainings to inside Syria. And sadly, the digital security, at least for me, it's pretty difficult if you want to work and in this extreme circumstances and with this regime that it has mainly the Russian technology on its side. Sometimes you can't really compete with it. My website was down once because I wrote an article at the very beginning of the revolution speaking about a demonstration, just describing what happened in a demonstration. So they attacked my website and it was down, and then a friend helped me to take it out. So what we're doing is that we also have a Cyber Arabs page that it just take any request from any activist or Syrian who needs help to get his website back or page or email or whatever. So we're trying to provide such an assistance and the basic trainings. But sadly, this is all what we can do. And if you're really scared of being killed, your information becomes a less priority than your life. We are still in that phase. Despite being abroad, we're still a target, not only by the regime, but by ISIS, for example, and by other extremists. So we're still worried about that, but the information is still a very crucial element, and we're trying to help in this as well.
Altre domande? Ah, eccoli, prego.
Buongiorno, non sono un giornalista, ma vorrei lanciare una sfida a tutti i giornalisti, giovani e quegli esperti. Secondo me viviamo in un mondo di ipocrisia, composto di poteri politici e poteri economici. Nell'intervento ho sentito perché Trump non può aprire la porta a tutti della guerra, no? Dove ci stanno conflitti. Ma i paesi che producono le armi vogliono la pace in un paese povero. Secondo me questo non risolve aprire la porta a quelli della guerra. Invece di produrre le armi chimiche, le armi vere, no, materiali, perché non può investire in questi paesi poveri e eliminare le armi e promuovere veramente l'umanità in un mondo di globalizzazione, invece di investire sull'economia, creare sempre più un gap tra i paesi poveri, terzo mondo, e paesi ricchi. Questo è uno. Seconda cosa che ha detto Zain, sono obbligati a uscire dal proprio paese. Perché? Perché c'è la guerra. Come mai la guerra? La guerra proprio perché c'è la produzione delle armi dei paesi ricchi. Io vengo dall'India, l'India non produce le armi, ma è il primo paese che importa le armi dall'estero, tra cui anche l'Italia, che stiamo in Italia. Quindi secondo me i giornalisti devono fare una domanda a se stessi. Se veramente raccontano la verità, nonostante tutte le difficoltà, come nella persona di Zaina, è difficile raccontare la verità, ma allo stesso tempo raccontando la verità si può promuovere l'umanità, la globalizzazione dell'umanità. Questo
Grazie.
è il mio
Lancio
di sfida ai giornalisti.
Ai giornalisti. Grazie, quindi più che una domanda, un'osservazione. Allora, qualche altra domanda per Zain? Abbiamo ancora... Ecco, prego.
Buongiorno, senta, nella comunità internazionale si discute molto del ruolo di Assad in un futuro della Siria, no? Adesso si parla della Russia che prima la appoggiava, adesso con questo attacco degli americani, vabbè, la situazione è molto complicata, ma i siriani come vedono il futuro della Siria e come vedono il ruolo eventualmente, se lo vedono, di Assad?
Zain.
Se c'è.
Okay. When speaking about the families of the victims, and they're not few, they're plenty, for many of them, they would accept anything but not Bashar himself or al-Assad himself to keep in power, because him as a person represents all what led us to here. Yesterday, among the discussions about the US strike, a friend of mine wrote, in 2011, when someone was asking me, do you agree of a US strike against the regime, I said, on my body. And now, suddenly, I don't even feel bothered because they did it. It's all Assad to blame for that. He forced us to arrive to this stage where we welcome another international intervention, because this intervention, at least, is just hitting the cause of death. It's hitting the airports. That has been the main source of death for the last 5 years. US intervention is not new in Syria. They've been bombing other areas of Syria since 2014. But this is the first time, ISIS. But this is the first time where they actually hit an only military base. And many Syrians inside Syria, they cheered for it. About the future, it's really difficult. It seems like for most Syrians, they feel left alone. They don't feel that anyone is trying to find applicable peace solution for them. And having al-Assad in all ways, I don't think it would bring any kind of peace, because in my personal opinion, there is no peace without justice. And if there is a justice, Assad will be in the criminal court, not in the presidency chair.
C'è tempo veramente per un'ultimissima domanda, abbiamo proprio 3 minuti, quindi se c'è qualcuno che vuole qui davanti. Chiedo scusa per gli altri.
Io? Ok. Allora, innanzitutto sono tunisina e quindi ho seguito con molta passione la rivoluzione tunisina, ancora ora me ne occupo e quindi la questione siriana mi tocca anche molto, anche emotivamente. Quindi vorrei sapere da lei come risponderebbe a tutti quei giornalisti, attivisti, analisti che ancora oggi ritengono Assad il male minore in tutto questo conflitto, insomma. Grazie.
I believe this is exactly the way I wanted to end the session with. This is exactly what the international media fails to do. They're always focusing Assad, ISIS, military. They forget about the 12 or the 20 million Syrian. We were 20, now we're 12. Syrian who are living among those, who are resisting both of those, who do want a peaceful, regular life. They want to have families, go to work, come back. The routine is a great ambition for most of the Syrians, and we don't have it. Too much action. So I believe this is the main, I would blame the international media for keep focusing on who's devil, who's less devil, who's more devil, and forget about those people who are being affected. They are being terrorized by ISIS, they are being terrorized by the regime, they are being terrorized by the international community who is forgetting them. And it is just treating them as number who bath quickly on the news line. So it's really frustrating, and I believe no one is less evil or more evil. All the evils should be treated the same, all the evils should be punished and not have impunity for committing such crimes. Otherwise, we're giving the next generation a really bad example about what's good and what's bad and what you can go away with. And I don't think we would have got the Khan Sheikhoun, the latest chemical attack, if Assad was stopped very long time ago when his security forces shot the first demonstrators who were peacefully demanding their rights. So leaving things to escalate is only leading us to worsen situation, and this is going to affect not only the Middle East. I think this is giving a very bad example for the UN work, for what they can actually do for the Security Council, and maybe for the whole international system. Sadly, we actually wrecked all the values of the word.
Grazie Zaina, grazie a tutti voi, grazie per essere venuti qui.
I know, grazie. Thank you.
Scusa, ma io ci tenevo